Let me drop you straight into it, like I'm leaning across the table, speaking only to you. Have you ever felt like there's something inside you that the world has never seen, something quietly waiting, like a seed under frozen ground? Maybe you wake up and go through the same routines, talk to the same people, scroll the same feeds, and yet, deep in your chest, there's this whisper: you're meant for more than this. But here's the thing: we bury it. We bury it under responsibilities, under the weight of what others expect, under the story that we aren't ready, aren't worthy, or maybe that it's already too late. And yet there's a part of you that has never given up on you. That part has been tugging at your sleeve since you were a kid. That part knows you could rewrite everything in the span of 3 short months, 90 days. That's not a lifetime. That's a season. And in one season, the truth is, people fall in love. People change careers. People heal wounds they carried for decades. The question is, what would it look like if you gave yourself permission to unlock the hidden potential inside you? I'm not here to hand you cliches. I'm here to remind you of what you already sense but maybe stopped believing. You've been carrying weight that was never yours to carry. You've been silencing dreams because you were afraid they'd sound ridiculous out loud. But isn't it more ridiculous to keep betraying yourself, pretending you don't want what you want? So picture this: you, 90 days from now, standing in front of a mirror. You're not some stranger, you're still you. Same smile, same scars. But your eyes carry fire. Because you didn't wait for the perfect moment. You decided this one life was too short to stay hidden. And before we dive deeper, I just want to say this. If something in you is already stirring, if your chest feels a little tighter, if your throat feels like it's holding back words, it's because your soul is listening. And I promise we're going to walk through this together, step by step. If this resonates, if you feel seen here, make sure you stick around. And if you want to join me on this journey beyond this single moment, hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs it, and let's build a place where none of us have to hide anymore. This isn't just content. This is a mirror. And right now, it's reflecting back the part of you that is ready to finally rise. There's a reason so many of us feel restless, even when on the surface, life looks fine. It's because deep down, you know that fine is the slow death of your potential. Fine is the mask you wear when you don't want anyone to ask too many questions. Fine is safe, but it's also the place where your light grows dim. And if you've ever wondered why your chest tightens when you say, "I'm okay," but you don't really mean it, it's because your soul knows you're betraying yourself. Think back to when you were younger, before the world's noise got louder than your own voice. There was something you wanted to be, something you wanted to create, maybe even someone you wanted to become. And you didn't second guess it back then. You believed it was possible because no one had taught you yet to shrink yourself. But over time, the little cuts came, didn't they? Someone told you to be realistic. Someone laughed at your dream. Someone left, and you decided maybe you weren't worthy of being chosen. Those moments became bricks, one on top of the other, until suddenly you were living inside a wall you never meant to build. But here's what most people never tell you. Those walls aren't permanent. They're fragile. They're made of old stories. And the truth? Stories can be rewritten. That's what these next 90 days are about, not fixing you, because you were never broken, but peeling back the layers of lies until you remember who you were before the world convinced you otherwise. So let's start here. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, and instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for a blank page. And on that page you write one sentence: "This is who I'm becoming." Not who you already are. Not who you've been told you're allowed to be. But the person your gut knows is waiting underneath all the noise. That sentence becomes the seed. Every day you water it. Not with pressure, not with punishment, but with tiny acts that align with the truest version of you. And I know what you might be thinking: what if I fail? But listen closely. You've already survived things that should have broken you. You've already walked through nights that felt endless, and here you are, still breathing. Do you really think failure has the power to end you now? Failure is just feedback. It's proof that you tried. And trying is how you chip at the wall. Here's the secret almost no one talks about. 90 days is long enough to change your entire direction, but short enough to keep you present. You don't have to think about forever. You don't have to climb a mountain. You just have to take one step today, and then another tomorrow. And before you know it, the person in the mirror isn't just surviving anymore, they're alive. The thing about potential is it doesn't shout, it whispers. It waits for you in the quiet moments, when you're brushing your teeth, staring out the window, or lying awake at 2 a.m. replaying everything you wish you could change. That's when it speaks. There's more for you than this. And maybe you've ignored it because it felt impossible, or maybe because the people around you never believed in themselves enough to believe in you either. But you hear it anyway, don't you? That tug that says you're meant to live more fully, more honestly, more fiercely. Now here's the raw truth. Unlocking your hidden potential isn't about becoming someone brand new. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about remembering what you used to know before you learned how to play small. And that process, it hurts. Because to grow, you have to face the parts of yourself you've been running from. The shame, the guilt, the not enough you carry like a scar. That's why most people never change. It's not because they can't, it's because the mirror feels unbearable. But you, listening right now, you've already proven you can handle pain. You've handled heartbreak that shattered your trust. You've handled silence when you desperately wanted answers. You've handled the weight of pretending you're fine when you weren't. That's strength. That's exactly why you're ready for this. So let's look at day 1 of this 90-day journey. Not with a checklist, not with a rigid plan, but with intention. Day 1 is about telling the truth, not to anyone else, just to yourself. The truth about where you are, what you've lost, and what you're still longing for. Sit with it. Write it down if you need to. Whisper it in the dark if you can't say it in daylight. Because honesty is the doorway. Without it, nothing changes. And once you tell yourself the truth, something shifts. It may be small, almost invisible, but deep down, you'll feel it. Like a tiny crack forming in the wall you built. And light, just a sliver of it, will slip through. That's the beginning. Here's what I want you to know. You don't have to fix everything in 90 days. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. The goal isn't to emerge flawless. The goal is to emerge real. To stop living on autopilot and start living awake. 90 days is just the container, the safe space you're giving yourself to remember that you're allowed to want more. And maybe tonight, when you're brushing your teeth again, you'll catch your own reflection and think, what if this time I don't betray myself? What if this time I keep going? That question, that tiny shift, is how the unlocking begins. There's a hidden cost to living a life that doesn't fit you, and you've felt it. It's that heaviness in your chest when you laugh at the wrong jokes just to belong. It's the exhaustion that doesn't go away, no matter how much you sleep, because it's not your body that's tired, it's your soul, and you already know the truth. Pretending is far more draining than becoming. So let's talk about the first stretch of this 90-day journey. The early days aren't about giant leaps. They're about quiet rebellions. Saying no when you'd normally swallow your voice. Admitting you want something without immediately apologizing for it. Taking 10 minutes in the morning for yourself instead of giving every single second to everyone else. These moments feel small, but they are the cracks in the old foundation. And cracks always spread. Do you remember the last time you truly surprised yourself? Maybe you lifted more than you thought you could. Maybe you walked away from someone who didn't deserve you. Maybe you said something out loud that had been buried in your throat for years. That feeling, that mix of terror and exhilaration, that's your proof. Your body remembers what it feels like to choose yourself. The problem isn't that you've forgotten. The problem is you stopped trusting that you could live that way every day. But here's where these 90 days become powerful. Consistency is louder than inspiration. Anybody can get hyped for a day. Anybody can make promises at midnight when the pain is heavy. But showing up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, that's where your hidden potential stops being hidden. That's where it becomes muscle memory. Think about it like this. When you start, the changes may feel invisible. You'll still doubt. You'll still hear the old voices telling you you're not enough. But slowly, almost quietly, you'll start noticing the shifts. Your tone when you speak to yourself will soften. Your shoulders won't feel so heavy. You'll start laughing again, not because everything's perfect, but because you finally feel lighter, freer, closer to the real you. And people around you will notice. They may not say it out loud, but they'll feel it. The way you walk into a room differently, the way you hold eye contact, the way you don't shrink anymore. Some will celebrate you. Others will pull back because your growth will remind them of the ways they've stayed small. But you can't shrink again just to make them comfortable. This journey is about you. So when doubt creeps in, and it will, I want you to remember this. Growth doesn't look glamorous in the moment. It looks like tiny choices made in silence. It looks like nights you want to give up but don't. It looks like you choosing to believe that 90 days from now, you'll thank yourself for not walking away. There comes a moment in every transformation when the old life tries to pull you back. It won't come as some dramatic storm, it'll slip in quietly. A familiar text. A job that feels safe but deadens you. A voice in your head whispering, "See, you'll never change." And in that moment, you'll feel the temptation to return to what you know, even if it hurts. Because at least it's familiar. That's the hardest part, not the unknown, but the gravity of the known. But here's where your hidden potential starts to show itself. You pause. You breathe. And instead of falling into the old loop, you choose differently, maybe by a fraction of an inch, but differently. And that single inch, repeated day after day, is how entire lives are rewritten. The middle stretch of this 90-day journey is where it gets real. At first, the fire of starting something new fuels you. But now, the honeymoon glow fades, and discipline must take the wheel. This is where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they mistake resistance for failure. Listen carefully. Resistance isn't failure. It's proof you're moving beyond your comfort zone. You wouldn't feel the weight if you weren't lifting something heavier than before. You might wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and think, nothing's different, I'm still me. And that's true, you are still you. But change doesn't happen in explosions. It happens in accumulation. It's in the way you stop apologizing for existing. It's in the way you don't chase after someone who mistreats you. It's in the way you stand a little taller, even when no one's watching. There's a quiet power in keeping promises to yourself. Most people don't. They break them before the ink is even dry. But you're learning to keep them. And every time you do, your soul unclenches a little more. You're telling yourself, I am safe with me. Do you know how rare that is? To be safe with yourself? That's what unlocks potential. Not talent, not luck, trust. Trust that when you say you'll show up, you actually do. And let's be honest, there will be days you stumble, days you eat the food you swore you wouldn't, days you text the person you promised you'd block, days you cancel on yourself because you're tired, and you'll be tempted to call it all ruined. But here's the secret. Nothing is ruined. Every stumble can become a step forward if you refuse to stop. Failure only becomes final if you decide the story ends there. But you're the one holding the pen. So when you feel like you're not enough, when the voice inside tries to drag you back, I want you to ask yourself this. Who am I becoming if I don't stop? Who will I see in the mirror if I give myself the full 90 days? That question is your anchor. Let it steady you when the waves hit. Somewhere along this journey, you'll notice a strange thing. The world outside of you begins to shift. Not because it's suddenly kinder, but because you are showing up differently. The same streets you've walked for years feel alive in new ways. The same conversations don't drain you as much because you've stopped giving your power away in every sentence. Even the silence feels less suffocating, more like a friend than a punishment. This is where the magic of the middle begins to unfold. The habits you planted weeks ago, the ones that felt clumsy and forced, begin to take root. And suddenly, you're not pushing quite as hard. The momentum starts to carry you. It's like a river that was once blocked by stones. At first, the water trickles, hesitates, struggles, but eventually, the stones loosen, the current strengthens, and the flow becomes undeniable. That's you now. But let's not pretend it's all ease. Growth asks for honesty, and honesty can sting. You might realize that certain relationships no longer fit. People who once felt like home may now feel like cages. And walking away from them won't feel like victory. It'll feel like grief. That's the cost of unlocking potential, losing the versions of yourself that could only survive by staying small. And grief, as heavy as it is proof that you're alive, that you're loving, that you're growing. In these moments, you'll have to sit with questions that don't have quick answers. Who am I without their approval? What do I actually want, not what I've been told to want? And perhaps the hardest one, am I willing to disappoint others so I don't keep disappointing myself? These questions hurt, but they also heal. They cut through the lies and bring you face to face with the truth you've been avoiding. And when you sit with those truths, messy, raw, unfiltered, you'll realize something. They don't destroy you, they free you. Every time you face the truth and stay standing, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Piece by piece, you rebuild the person you always were underneath the armor. And that's when people start to notice a glow they can't quite name. Not the glow of perfection, but the glow of authenticity. You don't need to fake happiness anymore. You radiate something rarer, peace. And peace is magnetic. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It simply exists. And those who are ready for their own transformation will be drawn to it. So if you're in this middle place right now, feeling the weight and the wonder, remember this: you are not losing yourself. You are returning to yourself. And the more you return, the more unstoppable you become. There's a point where everything you've been working toward starts to collide with the deepest fears you've carried. It feels almost unfair just when you're building strength. The shadows you thought you'd outrun show up again. Old memories, old voices, old habits knocking at the door, and you wonder, why now? Why, when I've come this far, am I facing this all over again? But here's the truth no one tells you. This is not a setback. This is the threshold. Growth isn't about erasing your wounds, it's about meeting them with new eyes. You're not the same person who carried them before. Back then, the wound defined you. Now, the wound is simply a place where the light gets in. Think of it like this: you're climbing a mountain. At the bottom, the air is thick, the climb feels endless, and you can barely see past the next step. But the higher you go, the clearer the view becomes. The climb doesn't get easier, it still burns your muscles and tests your lungs, but the perspective changes. You begin to see why the struggle matters. You begin to see the landscape of your life with more clarity than you've ever had before. That's where you are now, higher than you've ever been, clearer than you've ever felt. And yes, it's terrifying, because standing at this height means you can no longer pretend you're powerless. You can no longer blame everyone else for the story you're living. You see it now. You've always had the pen in your hand. And with that truth comes both freedom and responsibility. So what do you do with it? You begin to write differently. Instead of telling yourself, I'm broken, you start saying, I'm becoming. Instead of asking, why me? You ask, what can I create from this? And every time you shift the language, you shift the reality. Words are spells, and you've been casting ones that kept you small. But now you're learning to speak in a way that builds you. And don't get me wrong, this isn't about toxic positivity. You don't have to smile through your pain or pretend the scars don't ache. You just have to keep walking, even when your knees shake. Because every step proves something the darkness never wanted you to believe, that you are stronger than what tried to destroy you. When you reach this threshold, you realize the 90 days aren't just about creating habits or goals. They're about rewriting your identity. You're no longer someone who hopes. You're someone who does. You're no longer someone waiting to be saved. You're someone who chooses themselves again and again. And one morning, without fanfare, without fireworks, you'll wake up and realize you've crossed over. You're not chasing potential anymore. You're living it. There's a quiet kind of beauty in realizing you don't have to wait for permission anymore. For so long, you've been scanning the horizon hoping someone would say, "I see you, you're enough, you're ready." But now, after walking through the fire of these days, you feel something shift inside. You're no longer waiting for the world to crown you. You're crowning yourself. This doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. No. Challenges will still knock on your door. Doubts will still creep in at 3 a.m. People might still misunderstand you, call you selfish, say you've changed. But here's the difference: you won't bend yourself into pieces just to fit anymore. You'll let them think what they want, because you finally know what you are: whole. And wholeness, my friend, is magnetic. It draws opportunities, relationships, and peace that once felt out of reach. Why? Because the universe responds to alignment. When you stand fully in yourself, when your actions match your truth, doors open. And even if some doors close, you stop mourning the ones that were never meant for you anyway. Think about the person you were on day one of this journey. The one who doubted. The one who felt stuck in walls built from fear. Now look at you choosing, acting, breathing differently. Do you realize how much strength it takes to unlearn years of silence? Do you realize how much courage it takes to stop living small? Most people will never even attempt it. But you did. You are, right now. And here's what I hope you remember. Potential isn't about becoming someone else. It's about finally being able to look in the mirror and say, "There you are. I knew you were in there all along." That's the gift of these 90 days, not perfection, but reunion. So as this chapter closes, take a breath. Feel your chest rise and fall. That's proof you're alive, proof you're still here, proof you still have time. And what you do with that time is no longer about survival. It's about becoming. If these words have stirred something inside you, if you've seen yourself reflected here, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if you want to walk further with me, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Let this space be a reminder that growth isn't just possible, it's happening right now in you. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of the one you were always meant to live.